I'm Dan Drake. This is Front Up on Geno TV and Channel 99. With us today is Tucker Holland, the housing specialist for the town of Nantucket, right? Welcome, Tucker. Thank you for coming.
Thank you for having me.
We have a few things to talk about, but the one that's obviously sort of at the forefront right now is Six Fairgrounds. Mm-hmm. And sort of, could you just briefly take us through to where we are, where we're going, and then we'll talk a little bit about this bump in the road.
Sure. So, as you might recall, the Board of Selectmen had voted unanimously to issue the RFP last January. We received 3 bona fide proposals, actually all from off-island parties. There were no on-island proposers. But we received those last May. There was a review committee process in which a unanimous recommendation was given to the Board of Selectmen in July, and they decided to take the strong recommendation of the review committee and award the bid to Hall-Keene Management and their building partner, Williams Building Company, in July. And so since that time...
Has a contract actually been signed?
There are 2 legal documents, and no, neither of them have been signed as we sit here today. They both are in development and review. But Hall-Keene and Williams Building Company have been moving ahead diligently with the permitting process. They received unanimous approval by the planning board for their special permit for the project on November 27th, and they still are going through the Historic District Commission process.
So going forward, what's the timeline?
So the timeline is they are actually, I think, before the HDC again next week, and hoping to have addressed concerns that have been expressed along the way with regard to the Fairgrounds Road building or buildings. That seems to be the principal area of concern for the HDC. It's hard to say precisely, but they're working to get the HDC's approval in relatively short order. They are submitting for the financing part of the project to the state's Department of Community Housing, Department of Housing and Community Development, DHCD, and that process, they have submitted the pre-application. Folks, if DHCD determines you have your necessary things together, then invite you to submit a formal proposal in February. So they've submitted the pre-application and hopefully will be invited to submit in February for the tax credit financing.
And then when might construction start if everything goes well?
A little difficult to say right now. It depends on what happens with the financing and, of course, finalizing the HDC portion. But I think realistically, it probably is about a year away.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just refresh my recollection in terms of some of it's apartments, some of it's single-family homes, right?
All of their project is apartments.
Okay.
Yeah, so 64 units, which is within the town's zoning bylaw for the commercial neighborhood district, which this property is in. And
how many buildings?
It looks like it will be either 3 or 4 buildings. Yeah.
Okay. And how many of those are, quote, affordable?
80% of the units are restricted in one form or another. There are a few as low as 30% of area median income, a chunk at 60% of area median income, and then roughly 40% of the units at 120% of AMI, which is what we kind of refer to as a Nantucket affordable level. So folks who are making a little bit more money, but still struggle to find decent, stable housing.
Okay, so that's one project.
Yep.
It's hit a little bit of a bump in the road with the neighbors have finally woken up to the fact after 13 years later or whatever that something might happen there.
There have been a few neighbors who have more recently become aware of the project, even though it's been in the paper and around and on town meeting votes and so forth, Board of Selectmen meetings for a while. Several years, and really the property acquisition with the intention of developing it for housing dates back, over a decade. But nevertheless, some folks have come out more recently and expressed some concerns, and different neighbors have different concerns, and it was. I'm just going to say. Great to hear from a few of the neighbors that, like going through the planning board process as we got, closer to the end, they've come up and said, I had some real concerns at first when I first heard about this, and, this process has been good for me to understand exactly what's going on here better, and, and I now feel this is going to be a very good project. So my questions and concerns have been answered. That may not be true for every neighbor, but it certainly has been good to see that for a number of folks that it is the case.
But nonetheless, somebody has introduced a warrant article for town meeting, trying to put a monkey wrench in the works. Yeah, and
from the paper last week, it sounds like town council has reviewed the article and kind of deemed that it actually is like illegal, as they termed it, in the one case, it would put the town, I think, on top of whether it actually could be carried through. If it were, it would put the town in serious legal liability, and I don't think that's an answer, and it's unfortunate that something like that was introduced.
Well, we'll see how it plays out.
Yeah,
but
yeah.
Even if it does play out in its present form, it ends up being an advisory.
Yeah, exactly. There are two articles. One is sort of a 7-year, I think, at least moratorium, and then the other relates to unwinding legally thing with the the development of this particular project. And I think, as you said, at best maybe it's sort of a sense of the meeting in some ways, but I think my belief is that the voters who have been present at the town meetings that have where the use of this land has been the subject of a warrant article, and they have voted in favor either in force of 2/3 majority, or I think in a number of cases of the related articles, it's been unanimous. I mean, I certainly have faith that the voters who voted knew exactly what they were doing, and so
even back to the acquisition of the property.
Even back to the acquisition of the property. So, I think Mr. Rynamo would like another bite at the apple, but I hopefully the, town council, will deal with it in a certain way, but also I think the community has strongly expressed that we need to address this issue, for our community, and there's been a lot of consensus around this is an appropriate site to do something within, again, the zoning bylaw limits. The Board of Selectmen, when they considered issuing the RFP, thought about the idea of doing a friendly 40B option, which would allow a little greater density in that, and they said, no, we don't want to do that. We want to keep it within what it has been approved by the voters of the town. And so I think it's all been very practical and straightforward.
If this project is completed, which we'll assume for the moment it is,
Yep.
along with what's going on in Old South Road
Yep.
and some of the other, the 40Bs
Yep.
that are being completed and so forth. How much of the town's housing problem are these all going to solve?
Yeah, so we're at 121 units of the 490 we need today.
Mm-hmm.
If we could wave a magic wand and all those things you said were done today, we would be approximately within 50 units of the goal.
Mm-hmm.
And in the course of doing that, we also would be getting ourselves into a safe harbor position that would allow 1 or 2 years of kind of safe haven from unfriendly 40B proposals.
So we're making progress.
Yes, we're making progress. But these are projects that take time to execute. Yeah.
So if somebody still could come, even though they're in the works, somebody could still come in as an unfriendly 40B
And yeah, there are different points at which the units count. And so the short answer is yes, someone could come in with a 40B.
What else quickly is on your platter right now?
There are a number of different things going on, but I guess I would like to say that it was a privilege to be involved with the Nantucket Cottage Hospital's community health initiative. Beth Ann Meehan and I had co-chaired the housing sector portion of that, and grants were just awarded a week or so ago, and it was a really special event at the Nantucket Hotel, and it really gave a picture that it all came together in that grant breakfast in terms of the impact that these funds, and they're not just about housing, there are other areas, mental health and substance abuse and women's health and transportation and so forth, but it just gave a light almost went off about like, wow, like this program could really have a significant impact on addressing some of the year-round community's greatest needs in these next 5 years. So I'm grateful to be a part of that project as well.
Good. Well,
Yeah.
Tucker Holland, thank you very much.
Always
And
a pleasure to see
come
you.
back and update us in a while.
Hopefully about groundbreaking. Thank you very
Okay,
much.
thank you.